man, James Lee Witt, the director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Let me say our thoughts and prayers are with those families who lost loved ones in this disaster.
What will a federal disaster declaration mean for Carter and Johnson counties? FEMA says flooded-out residents can now apply for temporary housing, low-interest loans, and individual family grants of up to $13,400. And FEMA will help to repair roads, water systems, and schools. But it's now clear FEMA's director does not want the county to rebuild in the tracks of the devastation.
It's important that people understand that when you build in low-lying areas, high-risk areas, then it's a serious risk and lives can be lost.
They're going to be buying land from people, buying their property so they can move somewhere else if they want to.
We can move them to higher ground, those that will sell to them. We're going to do that. And then that land will be given by FEMA back to the county so that we can use them for linear parks and running trails and things like that.
To qualify for FEMA's help, call 1-800-462-9029. Applications for help will be taken by phone. And the Red Cross will continue serving the area until needs are met. That number...
Chris Schutler has a major task in front of him, an up-close look at all the homes, businesses, and churches that were damaged by last week's flood.
It's part of my job, and it's kind of hard going into these homes and saying they're unsafe, really.
They're looking for structural problems like broken foundations and sagging roofs, as well as outside hazards like broken glass. And once the evaluation is complete, the structure's safety is graded, and a note is taped to the front door.
It's just a guideline and a warning for the people. Basically, it's at their own risk.
The inspectors looked at Willie Shell's house. He can see why they say there should be limited entry.
Everybody that's been to this house says that it's twisted. Even the walls are. And you can sight down and tell that they are waved in. The corners is not straight.
Some Tennessee Emergency Management Agency inspectors were out earlier this week marking buildings too. This church is among those that are unsafe.
Well, as you see here at the back side of the building, this is the structure, the main structure of the back side of the church been damaged. You'll see the walls buckled here right below the window.
Harold Hale says the church will probably have to be torn down, but that won't discourage the church members. He says it'll only make them stronger.
From trials and tribulations, setback, that's where you grow. That's where growth comes from. That's Christian growth. That's where they grow from. This is where people are growing. They're in here, these people are growing.
Hale says for now the church will be meeting in their fellowship hall. As for the evaluations, they're expected to take several days. And Merrill, if anybody out there is interested in knowing more about the evaluation notice on their door, they're asked to call the Carter County Planning and Building Department.
Barring any last-minute problems, Cloudland High School students will be back in class on Monday. Cloudland Elementary students later next week. As crews blast away the mud that once oozed waist-high and add to the pile of unsalvageable tools of learning, what wasn't destroyed moves 6 miles away to Elk Park, North Carolina, the temporary home for Cloudland Elementary.
We have some hopes of getting students in this building the latter part of next week.
That was heavy.
And from all across the country,
Nashville and New Jersey, Kingsport, Sullivan County, Washington County.
Principal Pat Julian is witnessing proof that people care.
It just makes me love all of our fellow teachers and people that I don't even know.
And there's progress toward reopening Cloudland High School. It wasn't flooded here, but the water hasn't been working, and it's been a main location for helping flood victims.
We hope to have high school students back in school Monday on a regular schedule.
Restoring Cloudland Elementary will take months and money. Now the focus is on restoring stability in the lives of students.
We're going to try to put it as bright and cheerful as we can and make the best of a bad situation.
Cloudland students in grades 1 through 5 will go to school in Elk Park maybe later next week. 6th graders will go to the high school, and kindergartners will go to a local church. Merrill?
Josh, what's the advice for people who want to donate to the school system?
A lot of people out there like that, Merrill.
River.
There was never a day in my life that I didn't have a toy to play with. And I can't imagine those kids on that mountain not having a toy or not having a bike to ride over to a friend's house if the friend still has a house.
Holland says donations may be made through the American Red Cross or his employer, Patey Lumber Company. Up next in
North Carolina school has been closed for a little over a year. Staff and volunteers are working to get it ready for classes.
Everything's has a fresh coat of paint on it, and then we've washed all the desks that they've been bringing from our other school, washing windows, fixing ceilings, and just sprucing up the place.
Officials hope to begin classes on Wednesday or Thursday. A community relief center in Carter County has been relocated. The new location is in a vacant warehouse just across the street from the Roan Mountain Fire Department. The first location was inside Cloudland High School. The folks are anxious for students to get back to the books.
Well, the high school, we're trying to get set back up to where we can get the kids back into school, and it was just so chaotic that we couldn't have classes or anything else up there if they kept it like it was. So basically had to start moving to other places.
The warehouse will serve as a distribution center. It'll provide flood victims with the supplies they need. For people wanting to volunteer for flood victims, there's a number to call. It's for volunteers and those needing assistance.
All we've done so far is recover bodies.
Authorities say the latest bodies recovered are of a mother and her 2 daughters. They were trying to leave their mobile home park to escape rising water when tragedy struck.
They just waited too late to try to leave, and as they were coming out of the driveway, apparently the water overtook the van and carried it off.
Their crushed blue Dodge Caravan was found on the banks of Doe River. The father, who was also in the vehicle, is still missing. Rescue squads are combing the creeks and riverbanks, desperate to find any sign of life.
Everything's turned upside down. We've got a lot of debris in the creeks, up on the banks, and we're just going to turn every leaf over to see if we can find anybody.
As darkness overcomes the rescue efforts, EMS workers in the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency meet to plan new strategies, hoping to find survivors in the rubble.
You can recover and rebuild property, but you can't recover and rebuild a life.
We'll be back with more on the... Welcome back to this town meeting on the winter flood of 1998. The mountain of water that descended down through the Doe River Valley left a mountain of work. 2 days after the flood, fear of not finding rescue worker Junior Godsey alive was sadly realized.
Some Elizabethton police officers spotted Godsey's body while walking along the banks of the Doe River. It took rope crews on both sides of the river nearly 2 hours to secure the area before they could recover the body.
It went rather smoothly. Like I say, it was just difficult due to the brush and everything, the trees that was on top of him and everything. It was just difficult getting him out of there. Cold water, that don't help our rescuers any. The water's about 32 degrees.
The discovery and recovery of Godsey's bodies was difficult for many of the men rescuing him. Most knew him well. Godsey was a member of the Kingsport life-saving crew, as well as a member of the Sullivan County EMS. As far as other efforts for the people that are missing and unaccounted for, darkness is upon us, and I think all of those efforts will be called off until sometime tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Teresa Bush, joining us live from Carter County. She'll have another live report coming up tonight at 6.
Tennessee Governor Don Sundquist has seen the Carter County flood damage firsthand. A National Guard helicopter flight from Roan Mountain down Highway 19E to Valley Forge has provided the governor with an overview of the devastated area. And a later walk along the banks of the Doe River at Valley Forge let the governor meet some of those affected by the flooding and see the damage up close.
The floods that we saw last year and we're seeing this year are so damaging in that it leaves debris and mud and just rips, the heart and soul out of a community.
Western North Carolina was also hit hard by the flooding. Now many residents are cleaning up what's left behind. Nancy Ross reports.
The powerful rushing waters, a painful reminder of all the damage left in its wake. Part of the community of Roaring Creek was ravaged. This is what's left of a family's full-sized van. The road here completely washed away. Many families are left without power, food, or supplies.
Like a bomb went off, to tell you the truth, sir. Destruction is very bad as far as everyone's saying it's the worst they've ever seen.
250 National Guard troops are out helping the flood victims. 15 shelters are open in Mitchell, Haywood, Rutherford, Transylvania, and Watauga counties. In Mitchell County, the water literally washed away a town's water supply. Several dozen families in Bakersville also lost everything they owned.
This got gone for me in about 35 minutes. It was all gone. Everything.
It appears that hardly a home was not damaged in the Roan Mountain community, and many families have lost everything they own. The elementary school is severely damaged, and so is the state park headquarters and campground. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell with more tonight from Roan Mountain.
The water is gone, but the problems are very clear.
Porches are coming down, and waste basket cans and everything.
Goldie Stanley is among dozens of Roan Mountain residents whose losses may amount to everything.
It's torn me all to pieces.
Residents in this area escaped just in time to watch the rampage of the flood from a safe building above.
Ain't got no home, ain't got nothing. Got yourself. Got a lot of friends. People you wouldn't even imagine come and help.
Help has also been arriving at Cloudland Elementary School, where water rose at least 3 feet inside and left 2 feet of mud behind. The principal says only the desks were not destroyed. Among the losses were newly fitted computer labs.
Everything we've worked for the last 3 years went down in one night. It really did. But we're going to build back.
School officials plan to conduct elementary classes at the undamaged high school, possibly in split shifts as a temporary plan. Whether it's the school, home, church, or business, apparently very few were spared damage here.
I've been walking around saying it's a new beginning. This is our new beginning on life. It has to be. I feel sorry for all these people in Roan Mountain that got nothing. At least I got rubbish to go through.
The flooding rain affected all sides of Roan Mountain. Roaring Creek in Avery County, North Carolina, became a thundering river, leaving property damage in its wake. News Center 5's Greg Wallace reports on the devastation.
It looks like a war zone halfway around the world, but this is Roaring Creek in Avery County, North Carolina. Here things don't seem to be what they are. Houses hang like Monopoly pieces on the edge of a board.
I've never seen it this bad in my life. As long as I've lived here all my life. I've never seen it this bad.
The Salvation Army looks for a route around the washed-out highway. This was a brand-new Honda Accord 2 weeks ago. Miraculously, no one is dead or missing in Avery County.
Everyone's been accounted for. Everybody's stable at the moment, and we're continuing evaluating everybody's status and hoping and praying we're doing okay.
Hand-built bridges make connections between people and supplies. It will be a long time before things are normal again.
To get the roads and everything completely built back, it'll be 6 weeks before we can have everything 2 lanes built back. But if we're looking at probably way up in the summer, getting everything restored back to the way it should be.
Over the weekend, several areas that were almost inaccessible to outside help were opened for cleanup. Volunteers were also using their compassion and their muscle to make a difference.
The quiet streets of Bakersville, North Carolina are now lined with emergency vehicles as residents struggle to pick up the pieces. Doug Young says it will take years to repair the damage to his business. Devastation is everywhere, but residents are prepared for the hard work ahead.
We've been flooded before. We've had 18 inches of water and thought that was terrible. 4 feet's pretty bad. But we've got a lot of good help.
Volunteers are pitching in, trying to salvage what's left.
these people needed help. You can just see how overwhelmed they are. We've worked here now for 2 days, and it's just barely scraping the surface.
It's a small community, and it's not a wealthy community, and just felt that we need to come up.
Hello and welcome back to Town Meeting with this special edition on the winter flood of '98. State and federal relief money eased some of the long-term worries of flood victims, but in the short term, there was still a lot of work to be done.
Situations like Walter's have again prompted an outpouring of support from the community, but organizers here saying they're finding themselves dealing with a new problem. A moment ago, I opened a box and found this, some sort of a shell lamp that was donated with good intentions, but it's this well-intentioned clutter that organizers here say is preventing them from meeting the needs that are really there as quickly as possible. So the Red Cross option is being stressed tonight. Merrill?
Josh, what about health and sanitation concerns? Are the residents finding what they need to be clean?
Merrill, that is a big concern tonight. Organizers here say they do need bleach to help them clean out the lines because it's thought that when the flood occurred, so much sewage mixed in with the flood waters and entered the homes. Bleach, gloves, brooms and mops, cleaning utensils tonight. Very important here at this community center in Roan Mountain and all over the flood-affected areas. Merrill?
We now join Teresa Bush live in Hampton tonight. Teresa?
Merrill, the cleanup process here is steady, but it's going a little slow. The problem is more hands are needed for it to go any quicker. And of course, that must happen before things here can get back to normal. Some flood victims are already getting a hand. Nearly 100 inmates from the Northeast Correctional Complex are scattered throughout Carter County. One supervisor says their efforts are being hampered by residents who want to look through the rubble as it's being loaded.
The job that we're in right now, we just don't have the manpower, we just don't have the time to do it.
Cleanups like this one can go a lot faster if the flood victims will help out. Crews want folks to dig through and get out what they want to keep, then drag all the rest to the side of the road for pickup. For now, it's difficult to get to some of those roads, but crews from across the region are pooling their efforts and working as fast as they can. But because the cleanup process here is slow, we're seeing many scenes like this behind me. Mobile homes structurally damaged off their foundation, but probably with a few items inside that can be cleaned up and salvaged. It's something that the residents here say they cannot do alone.
Good evening. One day after Carter and Johnson counties in Tennessee are declared major disaster areas by President Clinton, the nation's top emergency management official comes to tour flood-affected areas. James Lee Witt brings with him a sympathetic ear and a pledge for millions of dollars in federal aid.
Till now, the lion's share of help for flood victims has come from neighbors and local emergency agencies.
Folks that we've never seen, they see us working and they just jump in to help.
He's pretty devastating here.
But that's about to change as this man, Federal Emergency Management Agency Director James Lee Witt, touches down in Roan Mountain, Tennessee, to see for himself what President Clinton has declared a major disaster area.
You know, it's devastating. If you lose one home and one family lose everything they have, it's devastating.
The designation of Carter County as a federal disaster area means that places like this that have been devastated by flood waters will now see a flood of federal financial assistance.
You know, it's too early to put an estimate on what the cost is going to be because they're still cleaning up. We still have a lot of people to call the 1-800 number yet.
With damage estimates now ballooning toward the $20 million mark, Witt says 75% will be paid with federal money, the rest with state and local dollars. Flood victims will be eligible for temporary housing, low-interest loans, and grants.
This is just a tremendous asset to the people that have to come along later and pay for the taxes to pay for this, and it's just a godsend.
Now, in order for you to qualify for FEMA's assistance, you have to first pick up the phone and dial a 1-800 toll-free number set up by FEMA. We want to give you that number right now. It's 1-800-462-9029. Again, that number, 1-800-462-9029. That's the first step in getting this whole process going. And FEMA officials say if you don't call that number, they don't know that you need help. Merrill?
Josh, any news on North Carolina's federal assistance request?
Merrill, that request is out there, we do know tonight. Today, FEMA head Mr. Witt said that he has taken the request from Governor Hunt in North Carolina and sent it to Washington, to President Clinton, and hopes to get it within the next couple of days. He was asked why is North Carolina behind the Tennessee side. His answer was that Governor Sundquist in Tennessee simply put in the request before Governor Hunt in North Carolina.
Rain late in the week caused the rivers to rise once again, raising the anxiety of the people affected by the winter flood of 1998. If you feel that you have been affected by the flood, please contact FEMA at 1-800-462-9029. If you would like to volunteer or to help, the Salvation Army encourages you to dial 423-547-0054. The Red Cross number.
Elementary is slated to be the temporary learning facility for grades 1 through 5.
It's simply the very best possible solution for our problem. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be way ahead of anything else, and we will always be grateful to people of Elk Park.
I would suggest that the terms of the lease agreement...
Elk Park town leaders approved a lease agreement for Elk Park Elementary until June of this year. Minor renovations are needed, and students begin moving in next week.
Not a great deal has to be done. This building was in use as a school fairly recently, and everything's in pretty good order.
One challenge is space. The temporary school will only be able to house about 240 of the 400 Cloudland Elementary students.
This building is not nearly as large as the one at Rome Mountain, so we will not try to bring all the students here. We will probably try to find other facilities for our kindergarten and probably sixth graders.
The school is not far from Carter County. Elk Park is only 6 miles away. Mayor Hicks says she's just happy to help out a neighbor.
We're just very excited about it, and we're really wanting to help them at this time, and we just hope that it brings everybody closer together.
In Elk Park, North Carolina, Leanne Lillard, News Center 5.
Next on News Center 5 this week, Damascus, Virginia is a beautiful...
Few reminders of the past.
The blizzard of '93.
The folks here really don't need any more material donations.
We really need volunteers now to try to get this sorted out.
Yeah, here we go. They hope to be able to close this center in another week or two. Oh, there was something else they really needed here today.
Sun, yeah, sun's what we need.
And they got it. The best gift of all today. Steve Onesorge, WBTV News Channel 3, Avery County.
Well, President Clinton reportedly told his cabinet members that he'll be fine. Speaking of the scandal rocking the White House, today he met with his cabinet to get...
Barnes got these pictures in Carter County. The flood watch became a flood warning. The weather became the top story at 11, a position it would hold for nearly a week.
Good evening. Heavy rain is causing flash flooding in several counties tonight. Right now, some folks are being evacuated from their homes. Dave Dirks is in the Weather Center with the latest. Dave, it looks like Carter County has been hit hard by this rain.
That's right, Garrick. Earlier tonight, authorities began evacuating residents from the Shell Creek community near Roan Mountain. A shelter has been set up by the Red Cross at Cloudland High School. Several roads are impassable, and residents are being warned not to drive unless absolutely necessary. Anyone in Carter County who needs assistance getting to the shelter should also call 911.
Through the night, the devastation continued. A wall of water rolling off the Rhone in several directions. For those in its path, life was about to change.
This is just one of dozens of rescues made in Carter County Wednesday night as the community of Roan Mountain, Tennessee is decimated by severe rain and lightning. Adding to the problem, tons of snow from previous storms melts down the mountain, causing mudslides, leaving more than 100 residents searching for higher ground as the Doe River completely disregards its banks. Help from close to 100 rescue squad members from around the region began around 10 p.m. Wednesday when they realized this wasn't just your average rainstorm.
We have some very high water. Some of the houses is flooding, furniture's floating. So, you know, the water's up 8 or 10 feet, creek level.
The rescue effort is based here at Cloudland High School. This is actually home of the Highlanders, believe it or not. This is also a place where people can come and get out of the rain. One of 2 shelters set up. So far tonight, forecasters are saying rain will continue through tomorrow. It looks as if these people will be here at least until Thursday morning. As of 3 a.m. Thursday morning, rescue teams report no injuries, but problems caused by the storm are compounding, as a second school set up for a shelter experiences a leak in a propane tank, and communities below Roan Mountain start to experience the wrath of the surging water. County officials say damage estimates can't even begin until the water recedes, and they say that could be days.
News Center 5's Teresa Bush is on the scene in Carter County with the latest on search and rescue efforts being conducted by authorities. Teresa, how is it going?
And the rain has stopped and the clouds are breaking up just a little bit, but the problems here in Carter County are far from over. A Carter County Rescue Squad team leader tells me he knows of at least 2 deaths, and we've just learned of another. Rescuers dragged the body of a man from the water behind Bimberg's shopping center in Elizabethton just a little while ago. We also know that a rescuer is missing. The raft he was in has been spotted lodged in some debris.
Right here, and we'll start a river search from here, and we'll go all the way into the lake if we have to till we find something.
There were 3 other men in that raft when it tipped over early this morning. 2 were pulled to safety immediately. 1 spent several hours in the water. A high-angle rope rescue team helped him to shore just about 2 hours ago. Now, between 2 and 12 inches of water fell in the region overnight, overflowing a lot of the creeks and rivers banks, causing a lot of property damage. I want you to take a look at this. Let me step out of the way. Take a look at that snub-nosed bus. The fast-moving waters of the Doe River carried it some 150 yards. It's now lodged against the bridge.
By 6 o'clock that night, the damage was being compounded by the tragedy.
Merrill Moore and the team have details. Merrill.
Gary can, even by the standards of many who have seen frequent flooding, what they're looking at today is simply staggering. All over the mountain region, houses are destroyed and roads are washed away. So far, 5 people have died, including an 11-year-old girl found less than 2 hours ago. And others are still missing in the wake of last night's floodwaters, including a Sullivan County service worker. Hundreds of people were evacuated, and some have no homes to go back to. The relentless rains were pouring down in numerous counties. All along the banks of the destructive Doe River, searchers are trying every means possible to find that emergency service worker, Junior Godsey. He met peril in a rescue raft and has been missing since 1:30 a.m. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell joins us now with details on just what happened. Lisa?
Merrill Junior Godsey was among those who came to the rescue of flood victims from Sullivan County, and fellow rescuers hold out hope tonight he'll be found alive. This is the devastating aftermath on Spring Street in Hampton. Homes destroyed, residents stunned, but many lucky to be alive.
They didn't have any forewarning whatsoever to even be out of their homes. It's just unbelievable.
I'm just glad to be alive. Didn't know if I was going to live or die. You know, the water was rushing and it just kept coming up.
Judy Miller realized peril just as luck brought a fire truck to her front yard. You can only imagine what it was like to be rescued by the fire truck and then to have the fire truck stalled in the floodwaters.
Kept hollering, you know, he kept on the radio to try to get help, and then finally they came with the boat and got us out.
It was in just such circumstances that Sullivan County EMS worker Junior Godsey is missing.
We had people that were trapped on the top of houses that we were trying to get to. We had a gentleman that was in a small camper that was needing to be rescued.
As a member of a special rescue team, Godsey came with Vance and others out of county to help.
The rescue boat with 4 occupants in it was trying to rescue some people from their homes, and for some odd reason their motor had shut down on their engine. They hollered at us that they were going down.
3 were found. Some 12 hours later, the boat was found too, but the search for Godsey goes on.
Devastation in Carter County runs from Roan Mountain to Elizabethton. Raging waters have left countless homes gutted and house trailers buckled or sunk in deep mud. Numerous cars have been damaged or destroyed. And as the death toll has mounted, so have tales of survival. Hazel Fuller and her husband were swept off their porch.
When he went, he pulled me in, and we both went down between the two houses over towards that fence, and we grabbed a hold of the fence. That's the only thing that stopped us from continuing all the way down.
The couple held to the fence as long as 25 minutes before they were finally able to pull themselves to steps that led to safety.
Having his car swept away in the flood, rescuing his mother-in-law, insurance agent Perry Perkins has a unique perspective on both cleanup and damage claims.
This is considered what we call an act of God, and actually for coverage it's going to be hard for people to understand. There's not a lot of coverage on homes.
Unless they have flood insurance?
Unless they have the flood coverage, yes, for the house and furnishings.
After you got in the car and was driving down the road, the water was, like moving the car.
Most felt if the crest was only inches higher, the damage would have been much worse.
We lost her deck out back. It could have been a lot worse. It just barely got inside the building.
At the county garage, a few of the older buses were damaged and some were even lost to the flood. The newer ones were moved to the higher ground. This foresight also paid off at the waterworks department, where workers shut down the pumps so they wouldn't be contaminated with flood waters.
I feel very confident that we'll be seeing some federal aid for this.
By the time of our 11 o'clock newscast, the flood had claimed more lives.
News Center 5's Leanne Lillard joins us live from Carter County. Leanne, what's the latest tonight?
Well, Garrick, the water is now receding here in Carter County, but the devastating effects of torrential rain and floodwaters are still felt as the body count continues to rise. The latest flood victim is that of an 11-year-old girl. She is the 5th body found today.
We're doing searching operation, trying to recover victims, and all we've done so far is recover bodies.
Authorities say the latest bodies recovered are of a mother and her 2 daughters. They were trying to leave their mobile home park to escape rising water when tragedy struck.
They just waited too late to try to leave, and as they were coming out of the driveway, apparently the water overtook the van and carried it off.
Their crushed blue Dodge Caravan was found on the banks of Doe River. The father, who was also in the vehicle, is still missing. Rescue squads are combing the creeks and riverbanks, desperate to find any sign of life.
Everything's turned upside down. We've got a lot of debris in the creeks, up on the banks, and we're just going to have to turn every leaf over to see if we can find anybody.
As darkness overcomes the rescue efforts, EMS workers in the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency meet to plan new strategies, hoping to find survivors in the rubble.
You can recover and rebuild property, but you can't recover and rebuild a life.
We'll be back with more on the aftermath of the flood right after these messages on this special edition of Town Meeting. That descended down through the Doe River Valley left a mountain of work. 2 days after the flood, fear of not finding rescue worker Junior Godsey alive was sadly realized.
Some Elizabethton police officers spotted Godsey's body while walking along the banks of the Doe River. It took rope crews on both sides of the river nearly 2 hours to secure the area before they could recover the body.
It went rather smoothly. Like I say, it was just difficult due to the brush and everything, the trees that was on top of him and everything. It was just difficult getting him out of there. Cold water, that don't help our rescuers any. The water's about 32 degrees.
The discovery and recovery of Godsey's bodies was difficult for many of the men rescuing him. Most knew him well. Godsey was a member of the Kingsport life-saving crew, as well as a member of the Sullivan County EMS. As far as other efforts for the people that are missing and unaccounted for, darkness is upon us, and I think all of those efforts will be called off until sometime tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Teresa Bush, joining us live from Carter County. She'll have another live report coming up tonight at 6.
Tennessee Governor Don Sundquist has seen the Carter County flood damage firsthand. A National Guard helicopter flight from Roan Mountain down Highway 19E to Valley Forge has provided the governor with an overview of the devastated area. And a later walk along the banks of the Doe River at Valley Forge let the governor meet some of those affected by the flooding and see the damage up close.
The floods that we saw last year and we're seeing this year are so damaging in that it leaves debris and mud and just rips, the heart and soul out of a community.
Western North Carolina was also hit hard by the flooding. Now many residents are cleaning up what's left behind. Nancy Ross reports.
The powerful rushing water is a painful reminder of all the damage left in its wake. Part of the community of Roaring Creek was ravaged. This is what's left of a family's full-sized van. The road here completely washed away. Many families are left without power, food, or supplies.
Like a bomb went off, to tell you the truth, sir. Destruction is very bad as far as everyone's saying it's the worst they've ever seen.
250 National Guard troops are out helping the flood victims. 15 shelters are open in Mitchell, Haywood, Rutherford, Transylvania, and Watauga counties. In Mitchell County, the water literally washed away a town's water supply.
Ice get canned and everything.
Goldie Stanley is among dozens of Roan Mountain residents whose losses may amount to everything.
It's torn me all to pieces.
Residents in this area escaped just in time to watch the rampage of the flood from a safe building above.
Ain't got no home, ain't got nothing. Got yourself. Got a lot of friends.
War zone halfway around the world, but this is Roaring Creek in Avery County, North Carolina. Here things don't seem to be what they are. Houses hang like Monopoly pieces on the edge of a board.
I've never seen it this bad in my life. As long as I've lived here. I've lived here all my life. I've never seen it this bad.
The Salvation Army looks for a route around the washed-out highway. This was a brand-new Honda Accord 2 weeks ago. Miraculously, no one is dead or missing in Avery County.
Everyone's been accounted for. Everybody's stable at the moment, and we're continuing evaluating everybody's status and hoping and praying we're doing okay.
Hand-built bridges make connections between people and supplies. It will be a long time before things are normal again.
To get the roads and everything completely built back, it'll be 6 weeks before we can have everything 2 lanes built back. But we're looking at probably way up in the summer getting everything restored back to the way it should.
From the air above the flood's path, and on the ground in Roan Mountain, Vice President Al Gore Jr. sees what was not swept away in a flood 2 weeks ago. He meets with flood victims.
Hey, pal, how you doing? You gonna be all right?
And he brings money, a $35,000 grant for county water systems, and now $43 million of housing and urban development money is now available immediately.
The entire country will stand with the Carter County and the community of Roan Mountain and making certain that these families get back on their feet as quickly as possible.
The Vice President tours Cloudland Elementary, where waist-high mud mixed with sewage. Gore's handlers arrange for rubber gloves as cameras click away. Gore is visiting a town that's 2 weeks into cleanup.
The effects of this flood still are very evident, but residents here say things are dramatically better than they were, and they wish the Vice President could have seen things at its worst.
If he'd been here a little earlier, he would have seen a lot more of the damage. So much has already been cleaned up. At least he came to see the community, and, he could have just not come at all.
A lot of these kids, they're going to have nightmares for things that they've seen that night, and we wish he'd come just a little bit earlier to see what happened.
Gore says a sooner visit would have been in the way.
It is critical to stay out of the way of the recovery efforts.
A vice presidential visit briefly reignites excitement in a town burdened with a massive cleanup and with no choice but to burn away memories of the flood.
Josh Smith, News Center 5.
With all debris, this emergency watershed program should help prevent future damage when the waters rise.
Provide enough of a volume of the channel to carry the water to begin with. Some of the work we did in previous floods in this area withstood even the tremendous amount of water that came this flood this time.
Opening up the valves just part of the operation. Before the work to remove trees and debris began, teams assessed the damages. Now engineers are designing remedies.
We're taking and drawing a plan view map on the computer so that we can plot it out, and our contractors will have a good idea of where the sites are and what they're going to have to do.
These rocks will help create a solution. Contractors will turn it into rock riprap. What they'll do is lay this geothermal material on the side of the banks and then build rocks on top of it so the water can go straight through. The shoreline's being returned to its condition before the flood. But this combined federal and local project has strict limits.
We can remove any down trees or obstructions in that manner, or we can remove the debris, cobblestones, and the things that have filled in there. But we're not allowed outside the confines of the stream channel itself.
Cheryl Munn, News Center 5.
Natural rises above this natural disaster.
I'm just glad to be alive. Didn't know if it was going to live or die. You know, the water was rushing and it just kept coming up.
When he went, he pulled me in, and we both went down between the two houses over.
His friend was rescued. The flooding is changing one school's.
The sound of the siren sends their hearts racing. Brave men and women ready to risk their lives for the sake of saving others. The Carter County disaster brought tears to many faces. Residents in need of assistance. Emergency teams are trained to handle such situations, thinking only of the rescue and staying safe.
Basically concerned of the safety of the men, of all the rescuers, and hopefully we can find all of our victims.
Rescue workers face life and death situations whenever a disaster strikes, relying on each other to survive.
We're just like a family. We spend just as much time around one another at work as we do with our regular family. And the idea of losing one of them is really, really hard.
But they are human, and fear is a word they are familiar with.
Yeah, that thought is always there. We look out for one another, you know, kind of keep each other in check. Don't let each other do things that might get us killed.
But it's funny how the people most deserving of praise seem to be the most humble. The grateful survivors are all the thanks they need.
We went over, we got our patient out, they were fine, they were secure, went to the hospital, and now they're home tonight safe because of something that we had done. And that's probably the most rewarding thing about this job at all.
In Carter County, Leanne Lillard, News Center 5.
2 men are to thank for catching a suspect trying to rob a convenience store today. Police say Michael Field.
Asphalt to pieces of wood, but it is still standing, and now it's being put to good use. Church members have turned the building into a distribution center. Police folks in the area can go to get food and clothing.
Well, it just tickles me to death to be able to do something and not just stand around and wonder what people need.
Folks here say they're willing to work to fix the mess here. It may take weeks to correct what Mother Nature ruined in a matter of hours. In Avery County, Dave Faraday, Channel 9, Eyewitness News.
And if you would like to help the flood victims, a church in Charlotte is still accepting donations. Because of a huge response by people in Charlotte, Trinity Baptist Church will continue collecting donations through Friday.
Get to see too much, but he saw enough.
We're going to find a way to help out.
Officials from Crime Control and Public Safety and Emergency Management did most of the looking and tallying today.
Certainly some people hurting and are going to have problems for a while.
The most expensive part of the problem right now includes the roads and bridges.
We're just going to tear the whole thing out and rebuild the whole thing back. It's the only way you can do it, because there's no way that you can repair this pavement of this nature like this.
It's going to shoot your budget for the year?
This will shoot it, yeah, sure will.
Damage to state-maintained roads is $7 to $8 million. But hundreds of private driveway bridges like this one in Roaring Creek are also gone. For now, the only way across the creek is on foot.
They'll have to have some help from somebody.
For now, at least, there is a one-lane road that can get them close for people who have something to drive.
Just the mercy of the good Lord, everybody is doing as good as they are, you know.
Governor Hunt is hoping for better than that. He's already declared the area a state disaster, and now he's sending this letter with his signature asking for federal help.
We will now get this off. You fellows fax it today, okay?
Yes, sir, and we have the FedEx in the way.
Now, that could take a few days before that federal disaster declaration comes in, if it comes in. There are certain requirements that are needed to get to that point. They still have to do some tallying of the damage. They need to get a hard dollar figure on homes, businesses, roads, private driveways, property damage, on everything before the federal people can step in. But if they step in, then some grants would be available, some low-interest loans and things such as that to help the people in these parts. And they do need some help because most people did not have flood insurance, and what they lost is gone unless some help comes in. And that's what the governor was hoping to do today by taking a look in this area with his officials, and hopefully in the next few days we'll get some word from Washington either way.
Okay, Steve Sarge, thanks. Well, meanwhile, in Metro County, schools will start late tomorrow. On the news at 6.
How does other chicken stack up to the big flavor of Bojangles chicken? Well, why not try a Bojangles 2-piece meal deal and find out? It's a leg and thigh of Bojangles' famous Cajun spice chicken, along with dirty rice and a just-baked buttermilk biscuit, all for only $1.99. We think you'll agree that compared to the big flavor of Bojangles, other chicken doesn't have a leg to stand on.
Baby face, you've got the cutest little baby face. Didn't need a shove, I just fell in love with your pretty baby face.
There's never been a better time to buy your new big screen TV than